about one thing. Carson Wentz can scoot, and he doesn't get enough credit for that. But you're wrong about the other thing, which is that Eagles fans should be freaking out. Here's why. Last season, during the playoffs, after Wentz went down, I'm part of the NFL Insiders panel that picks games. I picked against the Eagles every time. Clearly, I was
wrong.
Hold on,
Mina, can we take a second there? So you are arguing by first discrediting yourself. That's how you're making the argument?
Yes,
okay,
yes.
Appreciate your transparency.
Because unlike some people, I learned from my mistakes, Domonique. I was wrong to pick against the Eagles because I was wrong to pick against Nick Foles. Now, I don't think Nick Foles is an elite quarterback. I don't think he's as good as Carson Wentz. And I do think, obviously, there was a little bit of an aberration last year because we've seen a lot from him. But he is good enough because this team is so deep, as you mentioned. They are built to win with even average quarterback play. And I think we'll probably get above average quarterback play from Nick Foles because unlike a lot of Super Bowl teams, the Eagles did not get worse this offseason. Yeah. They didn't suffer from that same sort of erosion that you see with a lot of championship teams. You could point to the coaches that they lost, but Doug Pederson calls the plays, so I don't think it'll be as impactful as people fear. Sure, they lost Vinnie Curry and Bo Allen, but they added Haloti Ngata and Michael Bennett. They're still incredibly deep on the defensive line. They've got Sidney Jones, the injured cornerback, coming back. They added Mike Wallace on offense. This team is so stacked. I think they'll be fine, even if we don't see Carson Wentz for several weeks.
Yeah, but I think a part of the reason why Nick Foles has been an NFL quarterback for 6 seasons, I think it is, and he had one good year with Chip Kelly. That was fantastic because Chip Kelly, you could argue, is an offensive mastermind, and then he had a few good games last year. So I'm not sure that I'm on the Nick Foles is great bandwagon. I know you're not saying that he's elite, but it's possible that he could be average or below average next year, in part because they lost Frank Reich. So I understand that the play caller has not changed, but Frank Reich is part of designing those plays, and those plays were designed for Nick Foles to have success. They did not ask Nick Foles to do complicated drop back reading of defenses. And I think that's one of the things that goes underappreciated is not just the play calling, but the play design. You can go back to Carson Wentz's first game of his rookie year. They designed a perfect game plan for him to have success. And I think that is important. So calling the plays during the game is important, but designing the plays is too. Yes.
You just talked about how talented this team is. Look at the backup they have. He was Super Bowl MVP. How can you panic with this team? They have the best situation. I feel like Carson Wentz can take his time. They don't need to panic. He doesn't need to rush back. They have Foles. And when he's ready, his head, his knee, he can go.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It would be a bad idea to rush Carson Wentz back. But the question was, should they be worried? I absolutely think they should be worried. If you're an MVP caliber quarterback who is a dual threat quarterback, knee is hurt. I'm someone who had an ACL injury. For most people who aren't Adrian Peterson or superhuman, it takes more than a year to get back to feeling good about your knee if you're Adrian Peterson. And if a quarterback like Carson Wentz, I think it matters that his knee hurts.
But they said it was more about his head than his knee. So that's what I was focusing on.
Okay,
but you're not believing that. Tell me the player perspective on that. So you think it's legitimately his knee, and the coach is just giving us that information that it's his head?
Come on, Molly. You believe things that coaches say? Like coaches, particularly during this time of the year. We can go to Hugh Jackson, who said a couple weeks ago that Mayfield wasn't good enough to play, and now he's saying Mayfield is playing as great as anyone. Like, coaches say all types of nonsense coming out of training camp, so I don't trust any of that.
Got it.
Look, we won't know how healthy Carson Wentz is until we see him play. So let's just, get that out of the way here. We can speculate. He looks great out there. Everyone, by all accounts, everyone who's seen him run around has said, all the reporters have said he looks good. It's interesting that Doug Pederson even said he has little hesitation. I think that speaks more to Doug Pederson and his straightforward style. He's maybe not as much, Domonique, obviously coach speak is rampant across training camps across the league right now, but it is interesting that he's a little bit more honest than most. But my point is that this team doesn't need him for a while. Okay, this team is so stacked. And by the way, I mentioned all the players who are coming back. I left out someone who might be the most important piece, and that's Jason Peters, the Hall of Fame left tackle, who's another reason why I kept picking against the Eagles last season. To have him back on an offensive line that is quite good will help Carson Wentz adjust to returning. The quarterback's best friend, if you're actually hesitant and afraid of running around and executing some of those plays that he used to, is a stacked offensive line.